Hey guys, on today's episode, we have Jacob Swartz. He is our Director of Recovery, and we talk about family and sobriety. We talk about him being a husband and a father, and also his experience working with other men that are going home to families and what works and the struggles they come up against, and healing for families as well. So tune in. Welcome to Impacting Recovery Uncensored. I'm your host, Sarah Pritchard. This is a podcast where we dive deep into the real, uncensored truths about addiction, recovery, and everything in between. No sugarcoating, no judgment, just honest conversations that can help lift up the solution. So let's get started today. I'm excited. We have our Director of Recovery, Jacob Swartz, again here with us. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for coming back on.
Yeah.
For context, Jacob and Colby were on together last time, and today we're going to get into family stuff and family dynamics. And, now when we first met you, you were not married, you were not a father, and you were sober, and now you are married and you're a father. And so I wanted to get into that and just kind of like how your recovery has changed and what that looks like. And then also on the flip side of that, the guys that you see that come through Impact and their family dynamics and what you see on how guys can be successful versus not. And same with the families, how they can get some healing versus if they don't get healing, and maybe some tips on how we can be helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and I know we were just talking about this. I know you got woken up by your daughter a couple times last night.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know how many times I've been in here and I'm like, I did not get a good night's sleep, and I'm like all over the place. So,
you just get used to it after a while. You just run with it.
I know.
It's part of it.
Yes.
That's what they don't tell you when you're everybody's happy, go lucky. We're about to have a child. Everything's good. And, I could just see everybody going, yeah, wait till the lack of sleep comes, buddy. You know what I mean? You're not, and then when it happens, you're just like, oh, okay. That's what coffee's used for.
Right. I know. Like, I did not know what tired was until I had children.
Yeah.
But that's all right, because it's worth it.
It's worth it. Every bit of it.
Okay. So for those that haven't seen the episode with you and Colby, and briefly just tell us a little bit about, your own journey, what led you to working in recovery, how all that kind of got you where you are today.
So, I actually made my way to Birmingham in 2017 I'm from Arkansas. I guess some would say, when I say North Little Rock, most people don't know that. They say, oh, you mean Little Rock? I'm from Little Rock, North Little Rock. They're right across the bridge from each other. But, in 2017, I had the opportunity to make a trip down here and come to treatment and get on a bus, and 12-hour bus ride. And I remember they don't do this, I don't think, anymore, but there was a layover in Memphis for 4 hours. So I really had some reflection time in Memphis, and we all know what Memphis is. And I got to see some interesting people while I was down there. So, so I made my journey down here and, got sober, went through treatment, went through a sober living. And after, I think it was about 10 months of being in the sober living, they offered me a job, and I worked my way up. I went from a part-time living in a closet, being a part of a relapse house, to eventually, running it, and was good at it. You know?
And you were actively participating in a recovery lifestyle.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's the only reason why they asked me to do that is as I was actively writing inventory, making my amends in that process, and had a sponsor and was attempting to sponsor men to the best of my ability. So, and regular prayer and meditation. So, yeah.
And then I know it always makes me think of when Chad talks about, probably in groups and just in general, but he's like, if somebody that is participating in this way of life and like seeking recovery, if they start a job at McDonald's and they're, an hourly worker or whatever, if they continue on this path, like they'll eventually get promoted to manager, and then they'll get, maybe move to corporate. And then that's just like kind of how it happens. Like if we're using these spiritual principles, he's like, they're going to be the first person there, the last person to leave.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming you had similar things going on probably.
I did. I was one of those guys that just did what was necessary to take care of what needed to be taken care of. And I was one of those guys that didn't really ask a lot of questions. I just was like, okay, you want me to do it? I'll do it. No problem. And they'd be like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that was easy enough, you know? And I watched other guys do the same thing, but they wanted answers and questions and stuff. And at the time I had no answers. I had no answers. I had that. That's why I was here. That's why I was coming to recovery to get well, because I was out of answers.
Mm-hmm.
I had none, and anything after that would have been my opinion, and it's just not going to work out when I was in that.
So, with you, getting promoted and starting to do all these things prior to getting sober, was that how you showed up in life?
Absolutely. It was. So there's something that there's a motto that I live by.
Yeah.
And I've heard this, and I heard this before I came into recovery, and I could actually put it in practice. So there's a saying that that the military says. It says always act 3 ranks ahead of yourself, no matter where you're at in life. And that's the way I was a guy living in the closet, but I act like I ran the place, and I did everything possible. And it's the same thing with my recovery. Is that at one point people would say, oh, don't push play on him. He won't shut up about it. Like it's just don't. And people would go, oh my gosh, man, I got to get away. Like you just push play on him. He would talk for 30, 45 minutes about it. I just go into this long thing, So,
yeah.
But yeah, it was a way of living.
Yeah.
I think most people don't understand that you submerge yourself in this way of living,
mm-hmm.
And I think that is the stepping stone to get well.
Yeah.
It has to become a way of life. It has to. So.
I know. I miss that. Like I was like, oh yeah, just do these steps that I see on the wall here. And I'm just going to, check that off the list and then be done and go live my life how I want to live it. And that didn't work out very well.
Yeah. and I had some factors in play. It was, I watched a lot of people when I came into recovery. I watched a lot of people that they would come to sober living, and a week later the families would buy them a car and stuff like that. So I didn't have any of that. So it was one of those things I can lay in bed, but there was consequences that came with that too for me, and things like that. I didn't have a plan B to fall back on.
Yeah.
It was either do this or I don't make it. It was that simple.
Yeah.
So, but that was a big driving force. I guess you would say, typically people won't say this is that I was terrified not to do what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, that was a good place to be, because it really propelled me through this whole thing. Like, yeah, I cannot do it, but I just don't want to. I'm in the preventive. I don't feel like getting in that state of mind where I don't do it. I just want to do it. I don't know if I can handle being there.
Yeah.
So I think that for me, that was very healthy for me to do that.
Yeah.
Because I understand what was at stake. I mean, it was literal death.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's amazing. I know. And I'm sure at the time it probably didn't feel great, but it's like such a gift that you were in that position to be like, I'm scared to not do the right thing because I'm scared of what's going to happen, when a lot of people don't even have that awareness, or they're not even capable of having that.
Yeah.
So, and so when you kind of progressed in the sober living, and then we met you, right? Adams.
Correct.
And I?
Adams. Yeah. He did we did something out of, we did something in the recovery work, and he took a group of us guys through some work, and we met in a little back room. And he would meet, and then that's how I came across. I found out very quickly after a while of doing this work that I started seeing a big disconnect from what I was reading and what I was learning from what I was hearing. Mm-hmm. And I remember coming to Adams when it was raining. It was raining outside, and he was in his little 4Runner, and it was raining. And I said, "Hey man, let me ask you something." I said after doing this for a couple of weeks with you, and actually it was like 4 of us. I was like, we've been doing it for almost we did it for a while because it was so much work.
Yeah.
And obviously we all had, people were married and had schedules and stuff like that. And I said, hey man, there's from what I'm hearing in here and what I'm hearing out here, it's totally different. And he smiled and he says, yeah, I got something coming. They said, I think you're going to like. And so, and I at the time I had no thought of working at Impact.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a big change for me. I was terrified about that change, you know? And I think that's, you asked in the beginning, how did I come into this thing of working in recovery? And I don't think I came into it. I think it was a gift that was given to me, and I just fell into it. And I used the principles of recovery to follow that path. And like I tell this to a lot of guys, and I kind of live like this today to the best of my ability, that whatever it is you believe in is always going to answer. If you're doing positive things, if you're putting positivity out here and you continue to progress, whatever it is you believe in will always show up for you, and it will answer a lot of questions in life. And I always tell guys this, that we need to get to a place where we can accept the answer that's going to be given to us.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's kind of where I'm at, and a lot of the way I live my life is everything that comes. And I kind of get into it like this is, you know, I talk to, you know, my mentor, my sponsor, whatever I can call him on here.
All of the above.
Okay. And, you know, and I came to him, and he's been so I went through numerous sponsors. I went through a couple of them before I found the one I'm with now. And he's been with me most of my sobriety. Actually all my sobriety, almost 7 years. So I went through.
Well, and you just celebrated 8 years, right?
I just celebrated 8 years.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was a big achievement. You know, and yeah, it was big. Yeah. It was big. I was, it's hard to believe when I say 8 years, and I look back on the journey, and it was just like, what a ride, man. You know, what a ride with the ups and downs. And believe it or not, for me personally, and I think I said this last time on the podcast, it was not difficult for me to get well around that. Difficult me, because I was at a point, I hit a point in my life where I was like, I'm using against my will. I'm so over it. I'm just tired of it. You know, and I had no desire to do it anymore. And I just didn't have the solution to actually make a decision and stand by it. Yeah. You know, so, and when I found it, I ran with it, and I was like, as long as I can get as far away from it as I possibly can, you know? Yes. So my mom, after about 6 months of being in sober living, my mom asked me, she said, so when you coming back? And I was like, you know, I don't think I'm ever going to come back. I think I'm going to stay here. And you just see her face, and it broke her heart, but she understood what I was trying to do here. Yes, so,
for sure.
Yeah.
And so a couple years into working at Impact, you met Sellers, your wife?
Yes. Actually, it was, so I was working a night shift up there. So in the beginning of Impact, there was a handful of us, and we did a lot of different stuff.
Yes.
I remember staying up, sleeping up there, doing 24-hour shifts to get this thing off the ground.
Yep.
And I remember I can still remember, it was dark time. It was cold because I had my jacket on, the same jacket I still wear every year. And you know, the funny thing about it is I have stuff. There's a couple pairs of clothes that my wife, Sellers, she asked me, she says, why do you still, they got hose in them. They have hose in them. Yeah. Like, why do you still wear that? And I'm just like, it came with me in my little duffel bag from Arkansas. And I can't, no matter what, I don't wear any, I don't wear a lot of them, but they're never going to leave my drawer. Yeah. It makes me, when I look at it, you know, they have burn holes in them and stuff like that. It's always a reminder. I know some people are like, why do you want that? I don't know, man. It just helps me remind it. And it always open the drawer when I may be having a bad day, and I look at it and be like, you're sure right. All right, this ain't as bad as it looks. So,
I love that.
You know, so,
yes.
But I met her. She actually, she's gonna crucify me for saying this, but she actually reached out to me on social media to ask me a question about relationships. And my wife knew what she was doing.
Good for Sellers. And Sellers is my good friend, so she's taking it how she wants to go about it.
She's very outgoing. Yes. Yeah, she takes the charge very quickly.
Takes the charge. That's what I was looking for.
And she asked me a question, and you know, she's an Auburn fan. You know, so And I'm biased towards both of them. I'm from Arkansas, so that's what I say. That's how I stay out of the controversial sports up here. I'm from Arkansas, so
Right.
and she invited me to come watch a Auburn football game, and that's how we met. And we kind of cultivated the relationship after that. She will tell you that she thought I was very strange when she first met me, because I would sit in a corner and vape and look at her because I was so nervous, and she thought I had something wrong with me. But then I started coming out of my shell a little bit.
Yes.
And we just kind of hit it off, and we went that way, and the family and all that, and I love her family, and then we got married. It was very quick. We got engaged at the lake, and within, I would say 7 months, we were married. We had a wedding and all that stuff. So me and her got married. We went to the courthouse before because we believed that living together, we're not married, was not right. So we did that, and we had a very nice wedding after that.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, so
which we got to attend, be a part of. It was really great.
So
and now you have a beautiful baby girl.
Yes.
Is she 1 yet?
She's
yes.
She's almost 15 months old.
Okay, yes. I was like, wait,
She
is
is
it
walking.
August or May? It was May. Was her birthday.
April is her birthday.
Oh, April. Oh, she was due in May, right?
Correct. So April 29th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah. Okay, so with now being a husband and a father and all that amazing things, how have you adjusted your recovery, or have things changed? Because, when we get sober and you're like, I was all in, I was doing all the things, and then you start sharing a life with somebody, your partner, and then you throw a kid into the mix, and it's like, like we were talking about, you don't get sleep. We get woken up 3 times in the middle of the night, and then you still go to work and still do recovery and still go to the gym. And so was that a hard adjustment?
So I will tell you this, that once I got married, the recovery adjustment I don't think anything changed, to be honest with you. Yeah. I can tell you what did change when I got married to Sellers is you live one way your entire life. All right. And so I'm a very selfish and self-centered man. That's one of my main problems. It took recovery to show me that. And you put another person in recovery together, and the age that I was 32, I've set my ways.
Right.
my wife's a little bit older than me. She was 34, so she set her ways, and you put us together, and I need to be right sometimes, So that's what the adjustment with me and her was, is coming together at a common ground on stuff. You know, like my time's like, it ain't my time's my time, her time's her time. It's, hey, we're gonna get together and we need to plan this of when you get your free time, and I need to plan this, and so that wasn't very difficult. And when the baby through the pregnancy, I think a lot of people, as men in recovery, and the doctor told me this when the baby was born. He said, listen, your wife is 9 months ahead of you on this. And I didn't, and I've never heard that in my entire life. And I said, you sure? That makes perfect sense. She's the one over there can't sleep in the last trimester. I mean, just uncomfortable and all this. And it made me have the most respect for my wife to do her recovery and deal with that and work she worked all the way up until 2 weeks before, a week and a half, I think. Yeah, a week and a half before the baby was here. I mean, she did. I mean, she was a beast, and I still went to the gym. I remember getting up at 4 a.m, going to work out. That didn't change, Hey, I'm going to my meetings and stuff. And, and I mean, she made it very clear that this will change when the baby gets here, and it has. And something that, I called my sponsor one day, and I said, man, I just feel. And she was probably 3 months. The baby was 3 months, and I was like, man, I feel like I can't do what I used to do in recovery. And he said, you can't. He said, but he says something, and I tell this to clients, I tell this to everybody, that she's an extension of your recovery. So he's like, you can still practice recovery while you're sitting there being the best dad that you can. So I took that, and I look at her sometimes, and I think that what would God have me be doing right now? And I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. I know. I was very similar in a sense of like, I got to have my morning time and this and that. And I got to, you know, all these things on how life was before having a child, and then getting thrown into it. And I say getting thrown into it because I had no idea what to expect with having a little human being baby.
By the way, there's no book. There's nothing that you can read.
That'll prepare you for the shock.
Yeah.
And so, and I love that you say that it's an extension of your recovery, because it is. And I had to be okay with, and I'm grateful I had women in my life to tell me, Sarah, it's okay if you aren't doing everything that you normally, you're going to be okay. Keep talking to us, keep being honest, keep working with, you know, the women you're working with at whatever capacity you can, even if they're calling you to vent, you know? And then when I took just let the pressure off of it all, I'm not doing this perfect recovery program that I'm supposed to be doing, then I was like, it's just fine. As long as I'm staying honest, talking to people, you know, doing the things that I can and seeking this power, I was safe and protected, and I was okay. But I feel like a lot of people don't talk about that because we get so, like I said, thrown into this life of having a newborn, and just it's all consuming. That's I didn't even really have time to come up for a breath of fresh air. But before that, I was doing everything I possibly could to get ready spiritually for the baby. And I don't know if you had a similar experience around that, or just with, you know, being able to navigate of okay, yeah, it's okay that I can't do every little thing that I used to do.
Yeah. And I think that alone, for me, my personal experience, that alone, that feeling conflicted when the baby was here, that I can't do everything that I once did. I think that right there was what kept me safe and protected. It's because I felt like I had more to do versus looking at it as an opportunity not to do anything.
Right.
You know, so I think that alone, it's the same thing with people in recovery going to have procedures done. The loan, you simply get, my sponsor told me this one day. He said he had surgery, and he said, you know, me going into this, it's the same thing with the child, me going into this around the recovery portion, not wanting to take certain medications is the thing that kept me safe and protected.
Right.
So it's the same thing. And this is, I don't think a lot of people talk about this, about being a father, especially men, because our pride so much. You know, we're men. We're supposed to hold it all in. I thought that for a long time, and that's another story. That's about what took me out in early sobriety, is hanging on to all that, not talking about it. You know, the very thing that I took pride in, the way I grew up, and the using life and all that stuff. You don't talk about anything. Keep everything a secret. Yeah, you can't do that in recovery. That's the opposite. So,
right.
And I don't think a lot of people talk about this, or they're too embarrassed to talk about this. But you know, when she was born, for those 3 months, I would sit there and go, man, you know what I could do if I didn't have a child? I could do so much more. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people talk about that, because that did cross my mind. Man, I can't do anything, man.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's, my sponsor told me that it was very natural for people to think like that. And I just think a lot of people talk about that. You know, she's the greatest gift that I've ever received. I mean, she's melted me.
You are an incredible father.
Yeah. She has wrapped me around her finger. It's, my wife says no to her, or she wants, or she's doing something and she says no. I look at her and I go, I can't do it. I can't say it, you know. Yeah. But I did have those thoughts, and and now that I'm a father, I talk to men that are fathers that's trying to get well, and I have to tell them that, especially when they're writing a piece of inventory or something. I'm like, it's okay, and I'm going to tell you this, and they look at me like, how do you know that? I'm embarrassed to even say that. And I said, I was too for a long time, but it's the reality. That's the thought that came across my mind is if she wasn't here, I could do so much more.
Yeah.
You know, And I think most people just don't want to talk about that.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, because it is like, oh, like the judgment will come in. It's like, oh, you must not love your daughter,
Correct.
And that is not it at all. It's just we've lived this way of life for so long. And being an alcoholic and an addict, we're selfish and self-centered to the core, like you mentioned earlier. And so you put another little beautiful baby human being that needs 24/7. Yes. And then it's like, I have to be totally selfless to this human. It's not of our nature. So of course we're going to have these thoughts that's like, wow, life is, it would be, or I'd be able to do more things if this little baby wasn't here. Yet you also are like, oh my gosh, I love you so much. Like, yeah. So I appreciate, and being a father, obviously I am not one, but I do think for a lot of people, not all, and everyone has their own experience, but for like a general consensus of fathers, it takes time to build that connection with the baby. Just like you were mentioning with the doctor saying she's 9 months ahead of you. Yeah. So when the baby's born, it's like, oh my gosh, finally this little baby that's been in my belly this whole time I get to hold, and you're like meeting her for the first time.
It is an adjustment for sure. I think sometimes I still have these moments. I had one the other day that I'm like, I'm looking at her, she's crawling and she's she's saying dada, and she's standing up and she's just so happy, and I'm like, I am a dad. You still have those moments. Like it still sets in, and you have your days where it's everything's great. Everything's always great with her, and it's just, you have these moments like, geez, man, I'm a father now. You still have some clarity around it,
Yes.
have some stuff around it. I can tell you this, and in that moment when I thought that for the first time, and it happened very rare about her, like, if she wasn't here, what else could I do? But in that same, and I think the reason why I had that moment is because I had a moment of clarity after it that, and this was incredible. I was sitting there feeding her, and she was in her little rocker, whatever you want to call it. And she's just sitting there. She ain't really moving yet, and I was sitting there, and I was looking at her, and all I could think of was the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen in my entire life, and nothing else came into my mind. And I was sitting there, and I was like, this is the first thing in my life ever that I can look at it with no resentment, no judgment, no anything. I was like, because I'm naturally a guy. I'm naturally, I think we're just a human condition that we can look at somebody, and we're, as much as we don't want to judge, I mean, in the first 5 seconds, we see what they're wearing. We size them up and all that stuff. And that was the first thing. She was the first thing in my life that I was sitting there. I was like, you know what? I have not had it. It's all butterflies when I look at her. And I found out for the first time really what my higher power, God, is actually how he looks at me, and the gift that he gave me, like, oh, he looks at me with no judgment. He looks at me with grace. And I was like, I understand it now to the best, and like, to me, it was mind blowing. I was like, that's what unconditional love feels like for the first time.
That's beautiful. I love that. I was tearing up over here when you were saying that.
But yeah, it was a big moment for me, and I know it was incredible. And I think the only way I was going to be able to experience, I'm so blessed that I had clarity and I was present to experience that. Yes. And that's really what this program recovery has actually gave me.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was thinking the whole time. It's like, we can't experience these beautiful moments if we're not present, being able to do that. And so kind of shifting a little bit and going into, because I feel like this is going to overlap with your experience that you kind of all shared just now, to working with the men. Mm-hmm. And if a man is going back home to his family, maybe he's a husband, has a young family, or we'll just use that example for now. Like, what do you see some of the biggest, or the biggest relationship challenges you see that come up, maybe with the partner or with the kids, and how that looks? I guess, and maybe challenges that come up where they work through them and they get well, and then the ones that don't work through them and don't get well, and like things that maybe people can look out for.
So so good questions. So what I have seen with the families is you have two types of families. Okay. You have a family that has an opinion on everything that's going on, and it's individualized, and everybody, like if you put them all in the same room, each one of them have a different opinion of why this guy is the way he is.
Right.
And then you have some, and on the other hand, you have a family that looks at you and goes, I have no idea what's going on. Okay. And you can guess which one would be more difficult to work with. But the beautiful thing about what we do is we have a family program that the families can go to, and I think when I say family program, every time I mention that to the families, they think they're going to go talk about their husband, or they're going to talk about their son, and they have something to do with that. It's not what we do. It's very, I mean, if it's probably not mentioned very little at all about the actual client. It's about how they're showing up around this, and it goes back to those two types. Is if a family, what my experience is, if a family works together to better themselves, as the client is working on himself to better himself, the experience of coming home is much more different versus a client that's in treatment and the families are not working on themselves, is because there's bitterness and there's resentment.
Yeah.
And my experience is resentment is just not with the alcoholic and drug addict. And I think that's what's misunderstood in a lot of areas is it's once it settles in, it's rooted in there pretty good, and you have to do some work to get out of it. And so what I see is if the families or the wives do the work, they don't bring up the past as much. They move quickly through it. And something that I warn families about, I warn actual clients about it is that, if your wife or your family doesn't do any work, your progress that you make will be overlooked because the resentment is too deep.
Yeah.
And I watched that time and time again. And I've actually had a real time experience. I was sponsoring a guy that, wife never did no work around it, and no matter what they did, any disagreement they had, she always bringed up everything he ever did. She was just to a point where she couldn't do that anymore. She was just, and he was like, I don't know what to do, man. I feel like I can't win if I lose. And I was like, you can't, man.
Right.
You can't, because, and my experience with that is they're sick just like the actual client is. You can get sicker, and love blinds you to a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And it blinds you very much so that you will convince yourself that, and I watch families do this, you will convince yourself that everything's, I don't know, it's like a trauma bond or something. I don't know.
Right.
It's very strange, man. But yeah, that's my experience around. There's two types: people that do the work, people who don't do the work. And I just think and has anybody ever come back? I think sometimes you've been doing it long enough that it just may need some clinical work around it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I mean, that's a good point, because it's hard because the addict or alcoholic already has enough shame and guilt with everything going on. I mean, I've never met a drug addict that's like, yes, I loved everything I did in active addiction. Like, no, we're our biggest critics, and we beat ourselves up about it. And so when we're talking about families doing their own work, I think it's probably hard for some people to be like, what do you mean? I don't need any work. Don't you see my son, or don't you see my husband? He's a disaster. I'm over here holding the family together. What do you mean? And so I'm glad you bring that up, because for a long time I really didn't understand that, because I've always been, and this is like before Impact, but it's just like my own recovery is my own recovery. I can be okay no matter what, which is very true. But for a lot of times, somebody that's going back home into an environment, if people can be on the same page and not being, beaten down. And I'm not saying that this justifies their behavior, because we know addicts and alcoholics they can do not great things. But I do think it's important for families to know, like, hey, you do have resentment, like, even if you don't know it, or there is so much hurt and there's so much trauma from it all, and they can get freedom from it too. Yeah. And I mean, just from what little I see, it is a lot harder for the addict or alcoholic to stay well when it's if the other person or there are family members that are really, really sick.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have seen that too.
Oh yeah, I've so there's something that I have learned recently, and it's always happened. I just now starting to understand what it is the family is in defense mode, and you got the client, the actual alcoholic drug addict, that's in defense mode. You can't accomplish anything when you're both in defense mode.
Right.
And so the 12 steps will help the actual drug addict alcoholic start to break down that wall of defense mode. Mm-hmm. And if the families don't get on board with that and do some work around that, it's always constantly, there's nothing that you can talk to them about. It's always defense mode. That is my experience around that. And I watch it time and time again, and it changes the dynamics when a man comes to treatment. He's got children, and the wife's been a single parent, or partner, or whatever, has been a single parent for a very long time. The idea will come up in their head, and I've had to talk to many wives and also men about this. Mm-hmm. is they was like, well, I mean, I've been doing it long. I've been doing it for almost 9 months. Some have been doing it for 4 years, so I can do it without them. And like, why do I have to go do this work to do that? And what I have learned around that is what my job is with the families is I got to get them to a place where they believe that he does not have a choice. Because if they think he still has a choice, they don't see the need to do the work. Yeah. And so that's my experience around that is if I can get a family on board and, hey, he's lost a choice around this thing, and they're like, I'm willing to do some work around it. You know? So it's just, if they think you have a choice, it's like, it's a behavior problem. They're like, you just need to stop, and everything's going to get better. Right. So
that's a really good point, because if it's a choice, then it's just like, they can just stop doing drugs or stop drinking or stop choosing to make these bad decisions, when in reality, it's way bigger than us. And so that would make sense. And so do you see, do you see if people participate in the family program or their own, work, whatever they need to do, and let's say the loved one isn't doing great or participating, let me rephrase this. Have you seen families be able to get well regardless if the addict doesn't?
Mm-hmm. All the time. And I make it very clear to them. When I update them, I say, listen, this is where we're at. And it sounds like you're getting what you need to do sometimes. And I'm very transparent with the families is you may be with us so y'all can get well. He may take a little bit longer, you know, and that's okay. That's okay. If one of them, and I think we've done our job. If one of them if one of the families or the client gets well, of course we want all of them to get well. Yeah. But as long as we're getting someone well, I think we can do that. Because I mean, if the family has a defense, we're giving families opportunities to set boundaries that they never set before, and we're showing them, we're coaching them how to set these boundaries and what to do, because they don't know what to do. You don't write anything on this. Like you're completely powerless around it, 100%. No matter how much knowledge you know, until you're in it, you don't see it. Right.
And it is so different when you're in it with somebody that you love. Mm-hmm. Because even my experience dealing with someone in active addiction that I love, it's like, I know all the things, but that will go out the window when I'm really scared and I'm driven by fear and I'm, and so like the families are allowed to react in any way that they than them. They're not doing this to me. They're not choosing to put heroin in their arm again. Then I'm with you. Like their guard gets like let down a little bit, and that they're putting their sword down a little bit, and they're like, okay, all right, maybe I'll be open to just like sitting in on a session or something like that.
And it's the same thing with us. When we start to surrender, we start to open up to things that we never open up to. When they start to surrender, they start to go, usually this is the first thing they say when they start to really surrender. They start to put the sword down and all that stuff and everything down. They start to realize they're like, maybe enabling them a little too much. Maybe giving them way too much. And,
Yeah.
And what I tell families today, as I usually tell the families more than this than the wives, but I do tell the wives this is from this point on, you have to ask yourself with your husband or with your son, you have to ask yourself, am I giving him opportunity or am I enabling him? That's really the two directions that I see and people don't go, I don't know what that means is whatever you're about to do for him, is it going to give him opportunity or is it going to just continue to feed this fire?
Right.
Enable him. And when you look at it from that way, I think it's setting some boundaries around it.
Well, and that makes me think of what Chad always says. It's like, do everything to support his recovery, do nothing to support his addiction.
Correct.
And so it's like, if they can be helpful during the time of treatment or whatever, but like, instead of, like you said, being a weekend sober living and someone gets a brand new car, like how is that going to be helpful?
Yeah. And I used to be like, man, why not me, man?
Right.
Why not me? But that wasn't my time yet.
Yeah.
And God knew exactly what he was doing with me. I mean, I got a car or a truck after like 2 years. It was like 18 months, almost 2 years. I mean, it was right on time. It was exactly what I needed when I needed it.
Yeah.
So, and I think those, to be honest with you, those experiences in recovery are the ones that last forever. That's the spirit. That's the experience that you need for recovery. Because it shows you patience. It shows you discipline. It shows you, I literally would have to go ask people. Like, it brought me outside and like, hey, I need a ride to work, man.
Yeah.
It made me get outside myself and ask for help more. So, I mean, God knew what he was doing because I had a lot of pride when I came in.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
And the families around that and I think a lot of families, and I watch this, and I don't think a lot of families talk about I don't think a lot of people talk about this with the families is, I would say half of the families that I have spoken to over the past 5 years, they're just like, hey, we're going to talk about this now, and we just want to get past this as quickly as possible. We don't want really anybody else to know about this, So, and it's just, I'm here to say that's not going to happen. Yeah. So it will come out.
Yeah.
So just, and typically my experience is with that too is once families start letting people know, they already knew.
Right.
They already knew. They was like, well, that makes perfect sense now.
Yes, I know.
Why he was never at any events, and when he did show up, he was late, and he was the first one to leave, and he was always walking crooked. So that makes a lot of sense now.
Right. And they're probably like, and my brother, or my uncle's an addict, or my sister. Yeah. I mean, it is so common. But okay, so last thing to kind of close it out, if you could get one piece of advice to families navigating addiction today, what would it be?
That there is help out there, and you're going to have to get outside your comfort zone to get that help. I will say this, that everyone, I think in 2025 that we live in, everybody's got someone in their family like that. And I think instead of trying to guard the individual, I think we need to ask for more help and get them as much help as possible. Because usually what I watch is once the actual, whoever it is, straightens out, usually the family somehow straightens out too. They start to really reflect on their life, and the relationship gets much better, you know? So, because that is a family secret most of the time. And holding on to secrets, from my recovery standpoint, secrets are not good.
Right.
They're very dangerous to us, and it's the same thing with a family. You can't experience your family if you have a lot of secrets in them. That's my experience. So, but there is help out there, and it's going to be uncomfortable, but it's, that's how you get well. Yeah. So, and that's really what it is. If you want to experience your loved one sober, recovered, and you want to experience for everything that's coming with that recovery, you're going to have to do the work on your end so you can actually experience that stuff. Because if you don't, you're never going to experience it with them. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yes. Love it. All right. Well, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for coming again.
Yep.
And thank you for tuning in to another episode. I hope today's conversation has inspired you and opened your mind, maybe even your heart. But remember, you're not alone. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like and subscribe. Follow us on social. We'll have all the links below in the description. But until next time, keep making an impact. Bye, y'all.